All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here, we're doing our preview and prediction for the TCU Horned Frogs and their 2025 college football team. Sonny Dykes returns to his post as head coach. 27-13 record through 3 seasons. Kendall Briles, third year in the role of offensive coordinator. Then the second year in the role for Andy Avalos as the defensive play caller. Pretty good offseason. Only went to the portal a little bit to add a couple of guys. That's still good enough for 53rd. And then a top 25 high school recruiting class. Last year was largely successful, going 9-4, winning the New Mexico Bowl with absolute ease. Getting started with this offense. This is a group that I absolutely love, and I think there's a lot more that they can accomplish this year, trying to build off a season where they put up over 33.5 points per game. This is a passing attack, Nick, that I think is going to bloom. I talked about Josh Hoover really a couple, starts after he made his debut a couple seasons ago for TCU. I was like, man, this guy is going to be something else. I've been a fan of this player since the moment he took over. Shows a nice flick when he throws, knows when to change up velocity, has toughness in the pocket. He can take a shot and deliver good throws at 6'2", 200. I think he has a great arm, can throw on a line of precision. Nice touchdown field. Great command for this offense. Ball placement and accuracy, though, are inconsistent. Sometimes throws RPOs lazy instead of firing the ball with some heat. I think this guy's going to be a Heisman finalist, Nick. I love the QB, top 10, top 5 in Heisman voting, that is. He operates this air raid system to a T, and he's going to continue to get better. This is the best player in the country you've never heard of.
I absolutely love this offense. I'll sing the praises of this TCU offense for hours and hours, and it starts with Josh Hoover, who I absolutely love. I'm so excited to see what this kid can do again this year after having a really strong season last year. They're going to sling the ball. They're going to throw it a ton. There's no hiding that. Sonny Dykes' air raid style of offense is going to be aggressive. They're going to throw the ball a ton. They had 312 yards per game through the air last year, 8th in the nation. They'll be at a similar number. Maybe they'll get that even higher. Hoover had 471 attempts under center, 66.5% comp rate, just under 4,000 yards. He was 51 yards short of 4,000, 27 touchdowns. 11 picks is a little bit concerning, but with the high volume rate of attempts there, it still is only a 2.3% interception percent ratio, so that's not a bad ratio at all. He did have a 5.7% touchdown percent ratio, so that's an impressive number. I think anything over 5 is a really solid number for a high-level quarterback. He should be, again, over 5 this year with a TD percent ratio. I love what Hoover can do. He stands in the pocket quite strong. He's very accurate when he needs to be. The deep ball is really pretty from him as well. He's developing himself into a star. If this TCU team goes on a run a la what they did in 2022 when they went to the national title game, he'll be in contention for potentially getting the Heisman. He'll get a lot of love, similar to what Max Duggan did. I think he'll have a similar explosion to what Max Duggan did in that 2022 season. I know it's maybe a lazy comp. It's the same program here, but I do think these are two very strong players. I think Hoover's going to be a household name come the end of the season.
Let's look at some of the receivers he's going to be throwing to. I love the return of Eric McAllister. He had 800-plus yards 2 years ago for Boise State, was the second leading pass catcher for the Frogs. Good size, 6'3", 205, nice ball tracking and ability to make plays downfield. He's going to be a star as well. Jordan Dyer is likely to fill out the Z wide receiver spot. He's a 1,200-yard pass catcher who arrives from Idaho. Joseph Manjack, 6'3", 205, is a solid producer. At least he was the last 2 seasons for Houston. I think we're going to see an increased role in the rotation for Jordan Bailey this fall. 2 guys that saw the field sparingly last year, and Braylon James and Duzzy Zokanama. Overall depth is unproven, but I think the 3 starters matched with Bailey will be good enough for them. And they also get back tight end DJ Rogers, who had limited production, but he was a starter and he was really good in run blocking. Wide receiver Terry Shelton. He's also the 76th ranked recruit in this incoming class. So I think they're going to be just fine here, Nick. It's certainly not as deep as some of the other top-tier programs. I think they have enough here to compete. These guys are going to get a lot of reps, so you want to make sure the conditioning is up to par. But I think they're going to do just fine here, even though these aren't exactly household names. It's still going to be enough to get you 4,000 yards through the air.
Yeah, I think so. I think like what they have here a lot. I think Eric McAllister is a phenomenal player who will really explode come the end of the season. 762 for him, 19.5 yards per grab last year. That's a pretty high number, 5 touchdowns for him. I think DJ Rogers is a really solid tight end, 142 and 2 scores for him. Jordan Bailey only had a few grabs, but he did have 2 touchdowns last year. So expect him to be involved in the red zone this year. I think they'll certainly try to target him. Dwyer was not a bad ad from Idaho. I think you can kind of move him around, play him at the Z. There's some production there, potentially there. And I think Joseph Manjack coming over from Houston, he had 350 yards receiving, 16 yards to grab, and 3 scores last year. Had 6 the year before that, and 577. He's also a good special teams asset. He'll probably return punts for this team, so keep an eye on that from Manjack as well. I like this wide receiving core. There's some solid depth here.
Now look at this rushing attack. It was somewhat disappointing, and I know that it's still an air raid attack, but like you said, back in 2022, that was an incredible offense, of course, but they ran the ball for almost 200 yards per game, and they've typically always had great efficiency with this rushing attack. Even in 23, Imani Bailey had 1,200 yards. Last year, they were just no good, and it wasn't a very complimentary part of this offense, 114 yards per game. Cam Cook was supposed to be really good. He really wasn't. Only had one game of over 80 yards. That was in the season opener against Stanford. Savion Williams at one point had to get moved down from his receiving spot to end up being the second leading rusher for this team. So it's great that they had that versatility, but it just doesn't show that you had a great run game to begin with, having to do that move. It did work out for them, though. But we need to see them get back to 150-plus yards per game, Nick, for this offense to really take that next level to be elite. Trent Battle, 6'1", 200. He got a solid amount of touches across the back half of the season. Jeremy Plain also played even more as a true freshman. I think that they like what they have, and both of those players, they were on the field often. Kavorian Barnes lost his starting job last year at UTSA, but as a power runner, he had two straight 700-plus yard seasons prior to last season. Also got Nate Palmer, a three-star from last year's class. I trust Dykes in his evaluations at running back. I think the spot will do good for them. And again, guys like Battle and Payne, Nick, they got on the field a good amount for being young. I think Barnes will be good in the red zone. What do you think of this run game? Do you think they're going to be able to get back to the levels that they need to be, or is it going to struggle kind of like last season?
Yeah, 114 yards per game is not good enough, obviously. I think they know that. TCU, they want to find a way to improve and get a better number than that. I think they know that's just too low. 113th in the nation is not good enough. It's got to be complementary. I know it doesn't have to be a superstar rushing attack, but it's got to find a way to balance the pass attack. Payne had 240 for this team last year, 3 scores. He's not a bad back. He should be solid. Trent Battle, 186 and 2 scores on their limited touches there. Each of them had about 50 touches, so not a whole lot of film to work with, but 2 guys then they could be solid. Kavion Barnes coming over from UTSA. He had quiet 2024. He wasn't involved in the offense, but his 2023 was solid. 715, 5 yards per carry, and 6 scores. I think he'll be certainly a guy you want to look at. He did have 3 fumbles in 2023, so hopefully he can protect the ball and make sure that does not happen here. I think the talent will be just fine. I don't know if it's going to be a superstar unit, but I think they'll improve. They'll probably find a way to get just a little bit more than they need to, probably up to that like 130, 135 yards per game. I think that'll be enough to get this offense high flying and in a really good position.
Now let's go ahead and look at the offensive line. Ryan Hughes, 6'6", 290, played 130 snaps over the final 4 games at left tackle, and some of that was at left guard, an effort of, utilizing that red shirt. He was quite solid, but could potentially struggle in his debut season as a full-time starter. Rasheed Jackson, he's 6'6", 320, played 1,500 snaps at Incarnate Word the last 2 years. He was a pretty solid player for them. Cade Bennett was a really good pass blocker in 22 and 23 for San Diego State. Missed last season, but he's going to start at left guard this fall. I think it's a real strong point for him. Center is going to be occupied by last year's starter at left guard in Colin Deary. Carson Bruno is going to return to his starting post at right guard. He's going to be having a really good campaign in 2024 for them. I think this is going to be a strong point for them. I really like the interior for TCU's O-line. Right tackle, Ben Taylor Whitfield. He was the starter last fall, struggled in the run game, was inconsistent in pass blocking. Remington Strickland played nearly 400 snaps last year at all spots across the interior, so a crucial depth piece that can start nearly anywhere. Offensive line was pretty good last year. I'm not sure if 2025 will be as strong, but far from weakness either. And of course, they need to up their play as well in effort of getting this run game going. I don't think this is a bad unit, Nick. I think it fits well into the Big 12 to compete with the more higher tier opponents. They do play teams like North Carolina and SMU non-conference. I'm not sure how they will look, but I'm glad that we get to see those opponents early on in the year so we can get a more accurate gauge of this upfront unit.
Yeah, I have no concerns, really big concerns with this offensive line. I think it's a serviceable unit for this conference. I think Hughes will be fine at left tackle when he gets fully into his position there. Bennett and Deary, I think, are 2 really solid pieces. Bruno and Taylor Whitfield are not bad either here. I think Remington Strickland could find a way into this starting rotation as well. I think it's a good offensive line. I think it's fine for the Big 12. I think it's serviceable as long as they're solid in run block to help out these younger backs. That's something I'm going to keep an eye on. But overall, I think this is a good unit.
Capping things off with the offensive verdict. Horned Frogs are gearing up for a big season on this side of the ball, and that acclamation is mainly due to how much I love the upside and fit of Josh Hoover at quarterback. I think he's got some good weapons to throw to, but finding consistency, making sure the run game can be much better from a production standpoint, it's going to dictate how dangerous they are. I'm going to give them a baseline star of an A-, Nick, and I certainly think that they're going to improve upon that because everything that we think might be a weakness for them, I think will be better than anticipated. These guys are going to cook this year. 40 points per game is the expectation from me.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable expectation. This is an offense that's going to be high flying. Josh Hoover is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in the country. He's going to be phenomenal this year. That bowl game for him earlier or last season that was phenomenal in the Mexico Bowl. He looked really good that day. He put his name out there, and I think he's going to be really strong for this team. The wide receiving room, they added two pieces that could be solid in Joseph Manjack and Jordan Dwyer, who I think could be solid. Eric McAllister will be a household name come the end of the season, and DJ Rogers is a traditional tight end that I think is really solid. I like the O line. I think it's a solid enough unit. The rushing game, obviously, they have to find a way to have some good efficiency on the ground. If they can find a way to be fully efficient on the ground, this will be a high flying offense, one of the best in the nation. They'll be top, 30, 40 in pretty much every category except rushing the ball, where if they can get into the top, maybe 90, 80 in the nation, find a way to get to 130 yards per game, this could be an offense that'll be very competitive every single week.
Now I move to the defensive side of the ball, and you want to make comparisons to the 2022 team, and you had Washington in the national championship as well, where these teams have great high flying offenses, but the defense has to have a certain standard. In 22, they allowed 29 points per game, but they were so elite at making plays that allowed them to go far, and that was good enough for them. Of course, they got hammered in the national title game, but it still got them to that point, Nick. When you look at these numbers, I think this is not bad, giving up less than 25 points per game. They're respectable when it comes to the yards allowed. I think they were pretty good against the pass, and against the run they struggled a little bit. But I think if they can build upon those numbers from last year, they'll certainly be a suitable group that can take them far, potentially into the playoff. With that said, they returned six starters. Up front, Devon Deal, he's been a great player his entire career at defensive end, which started at Tulane. Then last year with the Frogs as the top sack getter. He was also strong in run defense. Travis Jackson saw 200-plus snaps. He wasn't very good, though. Zach Chapman in nearly 400 snaps. Was above average as a redshirt freshman. Will certainly grow now that he will be put into the starting lineup. Paul O'Ellie didn't play last year, but was pretty good back in 2023 as a rotational end in 400 snaps. Jonathan Bax should provide some nice action in the rotation as well. So the defensive end group's pretty deep, I would say. The interior defensive line, Devon Deal's brother and Marcus was a great player as a redshirt freshman. He's 6'5", 325. He was nice versus the run and will be joined by a handful of transfers. Enzel Din Abu was poor in nearly 500 reps for Wazoo at 291 pounds. Perry Cole comes over after 1 year at JUCO at 6'3", 300. Kelton McKell from Jones College, also 300 pounds. Dykes is still trusting his JUCO connections, Nick, even with how much the transfer portal has evolved over the year. This has just been a staple of him his entire college career, so I think some of these guys will probably pan out for him. He also picked up Connor Lindgren, 6'5", 305 from College Station, entering his third year in the program for TCU. Solid group here. Pass rush, I think, needs to find more production, but I definitely think they're going to improve against the run. And the two Deal brothers, Nick, these guys are going to be the focal point of this entire unit.
They certainly will be the focal point of this entire unit. Devon Deal, 46 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, a pass breakup. He was really good. Marcus Deal, 21 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, sack, and a pass breakup for him. Zachary Chapman, 24 total tackles, 3 sacks. He was really solid last year. Travis Jackson, 20 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, pick for him as well. He was a solid asset. They went to the portal and added some guys. Asin Din Babu was not great for Washington State, 24 total tackles. Did have 7 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 2 QB hurries, so maybe there's some production potentially at him getting after the quarterback. Kelton McKell coming over from Jones College, a JUCO player that they're hoping can step up. Same thing with Perry Cole, who is at Trinity Valley Community College from the Texas area. He's hoping that they can find a way to get him involved as well. 2 younger guys with high upside potential here. I like what this unit can do. I am concerned about potentially to get some of those sacks. I think some of those ads in the portal, maybe those guys are going to try and rely on to get some of the sacks. I am concerned about that, but I think the rushing defense will be really solid here. They struggled at times against the run, 160 yards per game, giving up 83rd in the nation. It was certainly a weak point of this team. If they can find a way to just improve a little bit here, I think it would go a long way against the run.
You look at the middle of this defense, they return one of the top backers in the Big 12, Mnabdi Abazor. This guy was a very efficient tackler, great balance and bend with quickness. He was phenomenal in coverage as well. Caleb Elarms Orr, he was great for Cal back in 2023, and he was a very consistent rotational player, just over 300 snaps this past season. He's going to be great as a starter, so that's probably the best 1-2 punch in the conference, quite frankly. Caleb Cortez, they added from the D2 ranks. They returned Max Carroll, who's a freshman who saw 160 reps and was actually quite solid for them. I think this is a good group here. I know there's only 4 names I just read off, Nick, but I love the 2 starters. If healthy, they're going to be fine, but depth will definitely be tested if that's not going to be the case. And plenty of guys, though, I think can step into the box in the secondary. So I think the linebacking group's going to be a big strength for him. I love this 1-2 punch.
Obizior is a really strong player, 81 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, a pick, and a pass breakup. He's a guy that does it all. Elam's Orr was solid for Cal, and he was solid last year as well. 54 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks for him. He's a player that I like a lot. Max Carroll had 20 total tackles, tackle for loss, and 2 pass breakups in his reps. He's a younger player, though, that I think will certainly find a way to be more involved in this unit as time goes on. Alarms Orr had 92 total tackles and 6 QB hurries, 5 pass breakups during his season at Cal in 2023. So he's a player that they're very high on, getting back to that level in a full-time starting role here. I like this linebacking core, a really strong part of this defense.
Now you look at the secondary; it was very good against the pass. Limited opponents, only 14 touchdowns. I snagged 10 picks, well under 200 yards. You're going to look at this group. You're going to start with Channing Canada. He was solid in coverage, less consistent versus a run, but was a strong tackler. He's going to remain in a starting cornerback position. Elijah Jackson was really good at his career for Washington. He was like outstanding during their national title run a couple years back. He's going to probably fill a starting nod as well. Javon McIver Jr. played 200 plus snaps. Wasn't all that good, though. And then Avery Helm didn't play last year. Solid 4-year veteran, though, has plenty of on-field experience. He's just been inconsistent in coverage. I think it's a solid cornerback group here. Nothing that's going to cripple them. Nothing that's really going to put them over the top either. I think it's a quality group of players. You have Austin Jordan. He's going to be taking over in the slot. He's going to do very well in a full-time role. He was very consistent in his near 300 snaps. It also saw time in the box last year. The safety group is highly impressive. Very strong, led by Bud Clark, who was one of the nation's best defenders. He was elite in coverage, was very good against the run. He only missed 6 tackles. Back in 2022, he had 5 interceptions, a part of the run for the Natty Nick. So this is a guy who's been around for a long time. He's always been great. One of the best defenders you've also probably never heard of. Jamel Johnson was pretty good as well. Most of his time came in the box, and he was one of the top tacklers on the team. Cade McFadden to back them up, only playing a few snaps. And then Kylan Jackson, an ex-4-star, played 2 years at LSU in a limited capacity. Picked up 2 guys from JUCO for the secondary, Jonah Martinez and Colin Collier as well. Good secondary here. They were a top-ranked pass defense for a reason. I don't think they'll be as strong as last year, but I think we have a playmaking unit here with great safeties at the helm, and I think Elijah Jackson's going to do wonders for him as well, Nick. I'm very happy with what this secondary has.
Yeah, I like the secondary a lot. Bud Clark's a phenomenal player. 67 total tackles, 3 picks, 3 pass breakups for him last year. He's a key player. Channing Canada will be really solid at corner. 31 total tackles, a tackle for loss, a pick, 2 pass breakups for him. I like him. Austin Jordan was solid for this team in his limited reps. I think he'll be really solid getting a full-time role, 16 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack for him. I think he's a good key asset here. You look at Elijah Jackson come over from Washington, 17 total tackles, 2 pass breakups last year. 2023, he was phenomenal, 61 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 6 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles. They're hoping to get that full version out of him. Some other names were solid on this team as well. Avery Helms, a decent player that can come back. They added Kylan Jackson, who could be a solid add from the lower ranks. Caden McFadden should be solid as a player getting more reps this year. I like this secondary a lot. They were really solid against the pass last year, holding teams below 200 yards per game, 23rd in the nation. They should be an equally strong unit this year that should put up some really solid numbers.
Looking at the verdict for this defense, the Frogs fielded a quality team last year on this side of the ball, but were far from perfect as they had some collapses. And against the tougher opponents, those guys were able to pick them apart on the ground. I think they have a strong linebacking group, an impressive secondary, and those 2 aspects should allow for progression. The run defense and pass rush needs to be better, and I think they will, but to what degree remains to be seen. I'm going to go ahead and give them a B, Nick. Is that going to be enough to allow them to potentially compete for a playoff spot?
I think this is a really good defense that does need a little bit of work here. I think the pass rush is a little bit weak, but I think the run defense, if they improve, that could be really solid for this team. I like the secondary a lot. It's a really strong unit with some really key pieces returning. The linebacking core, I think, is very strong as well and really solid, and the coaching is good for this team as well. Overall, I like what this team can do. I think this defense is solid. Returning 6 starters is always nice to see. I don't know if they're going to be one of the best in the conference, but I think it'll be just enough to keep them in contention for a conference title berth late into the season.
Now let's move to the schedule and the prediction for TCU. The Frogs are a very intriguing team. They have an offense with uncapped potential at this moment. With the pass game they will field, matched with what you would imagine will be a much improved run game. Defense, on the other hand, could be the unit that dictates how far they ultimately go. In 2022, they allowed, again, nearly 30 points per game, but were great at creating negative plays and did so at a high rate. And if the run defense can make big strides, that would make them one of the most deadly teams in the Big 12. Issue here is the schedule is absurd. You only have one freebie in non-conference, and the Big 12 features all the top dogs. Good potential, though. They can make the CFP. If people are going to sit here and compare this LSU team, Nick, in 2025 to the one in 2019, we're not wrong for comparing the 25 Frogs to the 22 run that they had one bit. I don't think we're being unfair. I think that's something you're going to potentially see in their future despite a tough slate. I think they'll beat North Carolina in Belichick's debut. They're going to spoil that. They're going to beat a tough SMU team at home late in September. At Arizona State, at Kansas State, at BYU. All losses for me currently. I think BYU now, that might be in flux with the issues they're going to probably have at quarterback. And those games are all winnable. Every game on the schedule is winnable, Nick. 10-2 for you. I went 9-3. I would love to see this team go to the playoff because, again, I love Hoover. I think Dykes is going to do a great job this year. So I would love to be wrong, and I'd love to see them win 10, 11, 12 games.
10-2 for me because I will have them picking off BYU due to the aforementioned issues with BYU going on. I'm not going to touch into that. We did that in our own episode here. This is about TCU. I love this team. I love Sonny Dykes as a coach. He's a phenomenal coach. I mean, he took this team to the national title game in the first season that he was there. He was 30-18 at SMU. He's 27-13 here at TCU. He's doing a really good job wherever he goes. He's a phenomenal coach here. The schedule is tough. I do think they will beat North Carolina on September 1st on Monday night. I've gotten the last 3 Monday night games in a row right that opened the season, including picking Boston College to beat Florida State last year, which not a lot of people are doing. I saw the writing on the wall for Florida State, so I feel pretty good in picking TCU or North Carolina. That's probably going to be one of my better picks for week 1. I really do feel confident about that matchup. The SMU game is quite interesting on September 20th, playing Dykes' former team, but being at home, I think TCU gets the edge there a little bit from me. I think they will lose to Arizona State and Kansas State. I do think those are the two best teams in the conference, and ultimately the two teams I have in the conference title game, with TCU falling just short due to the tiebreaker of losing ultimately, tiebreaker and all that stuff that gets settled there. This is a very strong team. I love Josh Hoover. I think he's a phenomenal quarterback. He'll have an incredible season. At least 4,000 yards is certainly in his future. I like the wide receiving room. I think the O-line is solid enough. The running room has to be a little bit stronger, but I still think it's a good unit. The defense, if they can find a way to be strong against the run and have a decent pass rush, they can go very far because I love the linebacking core and I love the secondary as well. This is a very fun team to watch. I'm glad they're playing on Monday night against North Carolina. A lot of people will be tuning in because of Bill Belichick and all of the off this field drama with his girlfriend and everything that's going on with a legendary coach dipping into the college ranks in his 70s. But I think the main attraction is TCU that night on Monday night. So I'm very excited to watch that game in prime time and get a full, very nice read on this Horned Frogs team. I will certainly be tuning into that SMU game as well. I'm very excited for this team. This is a very intriguing team in the conference. I think they can certainly go far, and playoffs is not out of the question for me. A very talented roster with great coaching.
I can already see the headline now, Nick, on that Monday night prime time. Josh Hoover, 5 touchdowns, spoils Belichick's debut. That's probably something that's going to happen, and the nation's really going to be put on lock in minute 1 about how good this kid is going to be. So I can already envision that now, and I can envision a strong season for the Frogs. I think this is going to be a great year for them. That's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.